Section 187. Vaisampayana said, thus addressed by the Brahmanas, the Pandavas, O Janamejaya, proceeded towards the country of the southern Panchalas, ruled over by the king Drupada, and on their way those heroes beheld the illustrious Dvaipayana, that Muni of pure soul and perfectly sinless, and duly saluting the Rishi and saluted by him. After their conversation was over, commanded by him, they proceeded to Drupada's abode, and those mighty chariot fighters proceeded by slow stages, staying for some time within those beautiful woods and by fine lakes that they beheld along their way, devoted to study, pure in their practices, amiable and sweet-speeched. The Pandavas at last entered the country of the Panchalas, and beholding the capital as also the fort, they took up their quarters in the house of a potter. Adopting the Brahmanical profession, they began to lead an eleemosynary life, and no man recognized those heroes during their stay in Drupada's capital. Ajnasena always cherished the desire of bestowing his daughter on Kirti, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, but he never spoke of it to anybody. And O Janamejaya, the king of Panchala, thinking of Arjuna, caused a very stiff bow to be made that was incapable of being bent by any except Arjuna, causing some machinery to be erected in the sky. The king set up a mark attached to that machinery, and Drupada said, he that will string this bow, and with these well-adorned arrows shoot the mark above, the machine shall obtain my daughter. Vaisampayana continued. With these words, King Drupada proclaimed the Swayamvara. On hearing of them, O Bharata, the kings of other lands came to this capital, and there came also many illustrious rishis, desirous of beholding the Swayamvara. And there came also, O King Duryodhana, and the Kurus accompanied by Karna. There also came many superior Brahmanas from every country, and the monarchs who came there were all received with reverence by the illustrious Drupada, desirous of beholding the Swayamvara. The citizens, roaring like the sea, all took their seats on the platforms that were erected around the amphitheatre. The monarch entered the grand amphitheatre by the northeastern gate, and the amphitheatre, which itself had been erected on an auspicious and level plain to the northeast of Drupada's capital, was surrounded by beautiful mansions, and it was enclosed on all sides with high walls and a moat with arched doorways here and there. The vast amphitheatre was also shaded by canopy of various colors, and resounding with the notes of thousands of trumpets. It was seated with a black alloy and sprinkled all over with water mixed with sandal paste, and decorated with garlands of flowers. It was surrounded with high mansions, perfectly white and resembling the cloud-kissing peaks of Kailasa. The windows of those mansions were covered with networks of gold. The walls were set with diamonds and precious stones. The staircases were easy of ascent, and the floors were covered with costly carpets and cloths. All those mansions adorned with wreaths and garlands of flowers, and rendered fragrant with excellent alloys, were all white and spotless, like unto the necks of swans. And the fragrance therefrom could be perceived from the distance of a yojana, 8 miles, and they were each furnished with 100 doors, wide enough to admit a crowd of persons. They were adorned with costly beds and carpets, and beautified with various metals. They resembled the peaks of the Himavat. And in those 7-storied houses of various sizes, beheld the monarchs invited by Drupada, whose persons were adorned with every ornament, and who were possessed with the desire of excelling one another, and the inhabitants of the city and the country who had come to behold Krishna, and taken their seats on the excellent platforms erected around, beheld seated within those mansions those lions among kings, who were all endued with the energy of great souls, and those exalted sovereigns were all adorned with the fragrant paste of the black hollow of great liberality. They were all devoted to Brahma, and they protected their kingdoms against all foes, and for their own good deeds they were beloved by the whole world. The Pandavas too, entering the amphitheatre, sat with Brahmanas and beheld the unequalled affluence of the king of the Panchalas, and that concourse of princes, Brahmanas and others, looking gay at the performance of actors and dancers, and in which large presents of every kind of wealth were constantly made, began to swell day by day, and it lasted, O king, several days, till on the 16th day, when it was at its full, the daughter of Drupada, O thou bull of the Mahabharata race, having washed herself clean, entered amphitheatre, richly attired and adorned with every ornament, and bearing in her hand a dish of gold, whereon were the usual offerings of arghya, and a garland of flowers. Then the priest of the lunar race, a holy Brahmana, conversant with all mantras, ignited the sacrificial fire, and poured on it with the due rites libations of clarified butter, and gratifying Agni by these libations, and making the Brahmanas utter the auspicious formula of benediction, stopped the musical instruments that were playing all around. And when that vast amphitheatre, O monarch, become perfectly still, the Stradhyamya, possessed of a voice deep as the sound of the kettle drum, or the clouds taking hold of a sister's arm, stood in the midst of that concourse, and said with a voice loud and deep as the roar of the clouds, these charming words of excellent import: Hear, ye assembled kings, this is the bow, that is the mark, and these are the arrows. Shoot the mark through the orifice of the machine with these 5 sharpened arrows. Truly do I say that, possessed of lineage, beauty of persons and strength, whoever achieveth this great feat shall obtain today this my sister, Krishna, for his wife. Having thus spoken unto the assembled monarchs, Drupada's son then addressed his sister, reciting unto her the names and lineages and achievements of those assembled lords of the earth. Thus ends the 187th section in the Swayamvara Parva of the Adi Parva.